When we look at royal collections, it seems as though these treasures are eternal, passed down from generation to generation, preserving memories and traditions. But unfortunately, not all jewels remain within the family. Some magnificent tiaras, once created for queens and princesses, have, over the years, ended up in private hands or disappeared from public view entirely. Today, I invite you to revisit some of these lost treasures. Let's explore which royal tiaras have slipped away from their dynasties over time and uncover the fate of these masterpieces of jewelry craftsmanship. Before we begin, please support my channel by clicking on the like and subscribe buttons. Thank you. The first tiara we will discuss is Queen Victoria Eugenie of Spain's Chaumet tiara. Once one of the most exquisite jewels in the Spanish royal collection, its current whereabouts remain unknown. Created by the House of Chaumet, the tiara featured a refined design, delicate fleur-de-lis motifs, symbolizing the Bourbon dynasty, alternated with elegant geometric elements. Originally, it was adorned with diamonds and turquoise, the latter lending the piece a soft, radiant glow. King Alfonso XIII gifted the tiara to his fiancée, Victoria Eugenie, in 1906. The very next evening after their wedding, she wore it for the first time at a grand gala at Teatro Real in Madrid. The heat in the theater was stifling, but all eyes were on the royal box, where the young queen dazzled in her jewels. After the performance, the streets overflowed with people eager to catch a glimpse of Victoria Eugenie, momentarily halting the royal procession. Despite its grand debut, almost no photographs exist of the queen wearing the tiara in its original form. The first official images featuring the jewel appeared only in the 1930s, by which time the Spanish royal family was already in exile. It was during this period that British artist Tosti Russell painted a portrait of Victoria Eugenie wearing the tiara. The exact moment when she decided to alter its appearance is unknown, but by the 1960s, the turquoise, having lost its color and brilliance, was replaced with diamonds, making the piece even more opulent and versatile. The tiara remained within the family until the 1980s. After Queen Victoria Eugenie's passing in 1969, it was inherited by her daughter, Infanta Maria Cristina. At some point, however, the Infanta decided to sell part of her collection. When given the choice, her nephew, King Juan Carlos, opted to keep another of his grandmother's tiaras, the Cartier Pearl tiara, instead. As a result, the Chaumet tiara was sent to auction at Christie's in 1984, where it was sold for $85,000. The buyer remained anonymous, though reports suggest they were of royal descent. Since then, the tiara has vanished from public view. It may reside in a private collection, have been dismantled, or changed hands once more. Like many royal jewels, once symbols of power and elegance, it has faded into history, its fate now a mystery, much like a ghost of the past. The next tiara in our story has a fascinating, albeit somewhat controversial, history. Queen Elizabeth of Belgium's Cartier bando tiara is a striking example of early 20th century jewelry design, embodying the elegance and craftsmanship of Cartier's garland style. However, despite its historical significance, this royal treasure was ultimately sold, leaving the Belgian royal collection forever. Made in 1910, the tiara features an intricate scroll and foliate motif, crafted in platinum and set with diamonds, including a remarkable 5.84-carat cushion-cut diamond at its center. Just 2 years after its creation in 1912, King Albert I and Queen Elizabeth acquired it from Cartier, making it a staple in the Queen's jewelry collection. In line with the fashion of the time, she initially wore it as a bandeau, positioned low across her forehead, a look that became synonymous with her regal style. Over the years, Queen Elizabeth wore the tiara for some of Belgium's most significant royal events. She chose it for the religious wedding ceremony of her son, Crown Prince Leopold, to Princess Astrid of Sweden in 1926, and decades later, she donned it once more for the wedding ball of her grandson, King Baudouin, in 1960. Even after the tragic death of her husband, King Albert I, in a mountaineering accident in 1934, Queen Elizabeth continued to wear the tiara well into her widowhood, using it for key occasions, including the inauguration of Queen Juliana of the Netherlands. When Queen Elizabeth passed away in 1965, the Cartier bando tiara was inherited by her eldest son, King Leopold III. However, Belgium's former monarch was himself a highly polarizing figure. Having abdicated in 1951 amid public controversy regarding his wartime decisions, Leopold remained outside the political sphere, and his jewelry collection became part of his private estate. Upon his death in 1983, the tiara passed to his second wife, Princess Lilian of Rethy, who was the only other known wearer of this piece. Lilian, a woman surrounded by her own share of controversy, had a personal connection to Cartier. Her sister, Lydia Bales, was married to Jean-Jacques Cartier, head of Cartier's London branch. Whether that connection played a role in what happened next remains unclear. In 1987, Princess Lilian sold the Cartier Bando tiara back to Cartier. The sale reportedly caused tension within the Belgian royal family, as King Baudouin and Queen Fabiola were allegedly not consulted before the transaction took place. While Lilian had full ownership of the tiara and was within her rights to sell it, the decision meant that one of Belgium's most historically significant royal tiaras was permanently removed from the family's collection. Today, the Cartier Bando tiara resides in the Cartier collection and is frequently displayed at exhibitions around the world. Unlike many lost royal tiaras that disappear into private collections, this one remains accessible to the public, allowing visitors to admire its beauty and craftsmanship. However, seeing it in a museum setting is a bittersweet reminder of what was once a key part of Belgium's royal heritage. The fate of the Cambridge Sapphire tiara is another striking example of how time and circumstance can lead to the disappearance of even the most magnificent royal jewels. This tiara, once part of the Cambridge Sapphire parure, had a history spanning nearly 2 centuries, yet today, much of the set, including its original tiara, is lost to private collections. The story begins in the early 19th century, when Princess Augusta of Hesse-Kassel, Duchess of Cambridge, acquired a breathtaking suite of sapphires and diamonds, likely as part of her trousseau upon her marriage to Prince Adolphus, Duke of Cambridge, in 1818. The parure, featuring a grand sapphire tiara, a necklace, earrings, bracelets, brooches, and a stomacher, became a treasured family heirloom. Over the decades, it was passed down through the Cambridge lineage, eventually reaching Augusta's granddaughter, Queen Mary, in 1916. As with many of her jewels, Queen Mary didn't simply admire the sapphires. She wore, reworked, and eventually gifted them. In 1934, when her son, Prince George, Duke of Kent, married Princess Marina of Greece and Denmark, Queen Mary presented the Cambridge sapphires as a wedding gift to her new daughter-in-law. Marina, a Greek princess by birth, had a deep love for sapphires, and this set became one of her most frequently worn treasures. She wore the tiara in Cecil Beaton portraits, at state banquets, and for major royal events, including the Anglo-Hellenic Ball in 1938 and a grand banquet following the coronation of King George VI in 1937. After Princess Marina's death in 1968, the sapphires passed to her son, the Duke of Kent, and his wife, Catherine, Duchess of Kent. The tiara remained in the family for some years, with Catherine wearing the full parure for notable events. However, by the late 1980s, financial pressures led the Kents to sell parts of the set. The original tiara was auctioned off, and in its place, a smaller button-style tiara was created using sapphire and diamond clusters from other pieces of the parure. The bracelets were reworked into a choker, transforming the parure into a more modern, but undeniably diminished, version of its former grandeur. The newly designed button-style tiara was last seen publicly in 1984 when the Duchess of Kent wore it for a banquet honoring the Emir of Bahrain, while other pieces from the set, including the necklace, earrings, and brooch, were eventually sold and acquired by Moira Fine Jewelry in London, where they remain today. But, reportedly, they are not for resale. It remains unclear whether the button-style tiara was also sold or if it is still in the possession of the Kent family. Unlike some royal jewels that resurface unexpectedly, the Cambridge Sapphire tiara has vanished into the world of private collectors, its exact whereabouts unknown. The Kent family, once in possession of one of the grandest sapphire parures in British royal history, now retains only a fraction of what was once a breathtaking set. Another remarkable royal tiara that has since left its original family is Crown Princess Cecilia's Fabergé tiara, a piece that perfectly captures the elegance and craftsmanship of early 20th century jewelry design. A creation attributed to Fabergé, this diamond kokoshnik-style tiara was a wedding gift to Duchess Cecilia of Mecklenburg-Schwerin upon her marriage to Crown Prince Wilhelm of Germany, son of Kaiser Wilhelm II, in 1905. Despite its imperial origins, this dazzling tiara eventually found its way to the auction block, vanishing from royal hands forever. This tiara, sometimes called the Shamrock kokoshnik tiara, features an intricate lattice design punctuated by stylized laurel leaves and quatrefoil motifs. 3 distinctive circular diamond elements sit at its center, with the largest one being detachable. While the tiara bears no maker's signature, historical evidence strongly supports the belief that it was commissioned from Fabergé, possibly by Cecilia's mother, Grand Duchess Anastasia Mikhailovna of Russia, who was known for her love of the jeweler's work. Some sources even suggest that Cecilia's grandfather, Grand Duke Michael Nikolaevich of Russia, youngest son of Tsar Nicholas I, was the one who purchased it as a wedding gift for his granddaughter. Crown Princess Cecilia, considered one of the most beautiful royal women of her era, was depicted wearing the tiara in a notable portrait by Philip de Laszlo, as well as in a rare surviving photograph. However, one of its most significant appearances came decades later, after the fall of the German monarchy in 1918. Despite the political upheaval and the loss of much of the Prussian royal family's fortune, Cecilia managed to retain the tiara. In 1949, her daughter, Princess Cecilia, wore it for her wedding to Clyde Harris, an American designer and one of the famous Monuments Men. The wedding, held at Hohenzollern Castle, was a grand affair attended by both European royalty and American dignitaries. The American press marveled at the bride's attire, describing how a peaked diamond tiara glittered on her head, securing her delicate veil. After Crown Princess Cecilia's death in 1954, the tiara was inherited by a private family member. It remained in their possession for decades, its whereabouts largely unknown, until it resurfaced in 2019 when it was put up for sale at Sotheby's Magnificent Jewels and Noble Jewels auction in Geneva. The tiara, estimated to sell for between 200,000 and 300,000 Swiss francs, ultimately fetched 437,500 Swiss francs. The identity of its current owner remains unknown. Some tiaras carry an undeniable air of grandeur and history, but only a few manage to become as iconic as Princess Margaret's Poltimore Tiara. Unlike many royal tiaras, which are inherited, gifted, or loaned from a family collection, the Poltimore was uniquely Margaret's own choice, a personal acquisition that became inseparable from her image. Its fate, however, remains one of the most unsettling losses in the world of royal jewelry. Originally created by Gerard in the 1870s for Florence Lady Poltimore, the tiara was an English aristocratic jewel long before it found its way to the royal stage. It was an exceptionally versatile piece, capable of transforming into a necklace and 11 separate brooches, making it as practical as it was spectacular. Lady Poltimore wore it to King Edward VII's coronation in 1902, but by the mid-20th century, her descendants decided to part with it. In 1959, the tiara was auctioned at Sotheby's in London for £5,500, and it was acquired by a London jeweler, on behalf of none other than Princess Margaret. Margaret could have easily borrowed a tiara from Queen Elizabeth II, but that wasn't her style. She wanted something of her own, something that made a statement, and the Poltimore was just that, bold, theatrical, and unmistakably Margaret. She first wore it shortly after the purchase, during a 1959 gala at the Royal Opera House in Covent Garden, where the towering tiara added to her height, making an even more striking impression. But its most famous appearance came on May 6, 1960, when Margaret arrived at Westminster Abbey for her royal wedding. Perched atop her Norman Hartnell gown and silk veil, the tiara was unapologetically grand, a striking contrast to the softer, more delicate tiaras worn by other royal brides. The Poltimore Tiara became Margaret's signature. She continued wearing it throughout her life, styling it in different ways, sometimes as a necklace, sometimes using its brooches separately. It was the largest and most dramatic tiara in her personal collection, and she wore it confidently, whether for state events or even in her bathtub, a moment immortalized in a 1962 photograph by her husband, Lord Snowdon. But despite its strong association with the princess, the tiara did not stay in the royal family. Following Margaret's death in 2002, her children, Lord Linley and Lady Sarah Chatto, were faced with an enormous inheritance tax bill. To settle it, they made the difficult decision to sell a portion of her jewelry collection, including the Poltimore Tiara. In 2006, it was auctioned at Christie's, fetching an astonishing £926,400, around 1.7 million US dollars, nearly 5 times its estimated price. The buyer remained anonymous, and since then, the tiara has disappeared from public view. However, there is a lingering legend, one that jewelry enthusiasts can't seem to shake. Some believe that Queen Elizabeth II herself secretly repurchased the tiara, ensuring that it would never fully leave the royal family. After all, the Poltimore wasn't just any tiara. It was her sister's tiara, worn on one of the most important days of Margaret's life. Could the Queen have allowed such a sentimental and historic jewel to vanish into obscurity? Some whisper that it now rests quietly in the royal vaults, waiting for the right moment to be brought back into the light. Is there truth to this rumor? No solid evidence has ever surfaced, but oh, how wonderful it would be if it were true. The thought that this magnificent tiara might still belong to the royal family, hidden away yet safe, is a comforting idea for those who mourn the loss of historic jewels. And that's all for today. These are just a few of the magnificent royal tiaras that have been lost to time, but there are certainly many more. Can you think of any other vanished royal jewels that should have been included in this list? Which lost tiara do you find the most heartbreaking? Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new story from the world of royal jewels. See you next time.